Jeremy Corbyn, the head of the Labour Party in the UK, absolutely lit up UK Prime Minister Theresa May in Question Time. I have to say, I absolutely love Question Time. It's so glorious for so many reasons. So I want to show you a small clip from it here. Take a look.
Yesterday, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation research found, and I quote, in-work poverty was rising faster than the overall employment rate due to chronic low pay and insecure work. The United Kingdom has the weakest wage growth of all G20 nations. Living standards have fallen for the majority of people. What is so wrong with our economy that our pay growth is so much worse than each of the other nations in the G20?
Prime Minister.
Right, honourable gentleman, that we now see wages growing faster than they have for nearly a decade. We see employment at record levels. But what the right honourable gentleman wants to do, he talks about scrapping universal credit. What he wants to do is to go back to square one. That means going back to a system that left 1.4 million people spending most of a decade trapped on benefits. It left people paying an effective tax rate of 90%, and it cost every household an extra £3,000 a year. As ever with Labour, it was ordinary working people who paid the price.
Mr. Speaker, the chief economist of the Bank of England describes the last decade as a lost decade for wages. And, well, the Prime Minister might laugh at this. It's the reality of people's lives. It's the reality.
Order. I appeal to members making too much noise to stop doing so. And I say very gently to the junior minister on the back bench, who is making far too much noise, but he's ordinarily a good-natured and genial chap. I'm referring to the honourable gentleman, the member for Hexham. You can do, Mr. Opperman, you can do... Order!
When the UN rapporteur said British compassion for those who are suffering has been replaced by a punitive, mean-spirited and callous approach, he couldn't have summed up this contemptible government any better. Child poverty is rising. Homelessness rising, destitution rising, household debt rising. When will the Prime Minister turn her warm words into action, end the benefit freeze, repeal the bedroom tax, scrap the two-child cap and halt the rollout of universal credit?
That was awesome. Now, I have to admit, man, and everybody knows this, I mean, my wheelhouse is U.S. politics. I mean, honestly, you can give me a year and I'll tell you roughly what the top marginal tax rate was at that given year, just because I've been so immersed in all this shit for so long that a lot of the facts stick with me. And I don't have that working knowledge of the UK, so I'm not here pretending to be an expert on anything. I just thought that clip was awesome. My favorite thing is the guy who screams order, because the way he says order is hilarious. He's order. Order. Ah, so wonderful. And listen, again, I don't know. I'm reminded of a David Letterman segment where he was interviewing Bill O'Reilly, and Bill O'Reilly rang off like a bunch of things that were supposed to be facts. And then they go back to David Letterman. Oh, it was about Obamacare. And O'Reilly said a bunch of untrue things. And then they go back to Letterman, and Letterman's like, you know, I don't know enough to say this definitively, but I'm pretty sure you're full of shit. And that's the sense I get when I hear Theresa May. It's like she says something, and I'm like, I mean, I'm not going to spend the time to fact check this, and this isn't my wheelhouse, so I'll leave it alone, but I get the sense you're full of shit. And you go, by the way, you go down and you read the comments on this video on YouTube, and it's everybody shitting on Theresa May and saying Corbyn is right. So, I mean, that's my... they're just YouTube commenters, and it's not like YouTube commenters have never been wrong, but she gives me that bullshit factor that sometimes you get that sense when you're around people. So, Jeremy Corbyn was talking about poverty, child poverty, homelessness, household debt, low pay, lost decade for wages, and I like. Now, I didn't know this was the case. I knew the UK was under austerity, and they've had austerity implemented for a while, and so their economy has been stagnant, and it actually has taken them longer to get out of that Great Recession than the U.S. did, because the U.S., even though, believe me, I know that our response to the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession was flawed, we did at least have the stimulus package, and we did have the GM bailout at the time. So we weren't, with an Obama government, which is admittedly a centrist government, it wasn't totally anti-austerity. Now, I would have done the stimulus package a lot different. I would have done a New Deal. I wouldn't have done the Wall Street bailout. So there's a lot of stuff to criticize there. But bottom line is, it was a centrist approach, whereas in the UK, it was a flat-out conservative approach. And so they've been struggling under austerity, and the whole point of the Labour government is saying, hey, we need to stop with the austerity. And he said we should end the benefit freeze, which I was like, oh, shit, they have a benefit freeze? So either way, awesome clip. I really do love Question Time. I wish that the U.S. took a lot more from the parliamentary system in the UK, because there's so many things about our system that I hate, you know. And unfortunately, I've been in the position recently where I've had to argue just the basic empirical reality of our system. Like, I wish we had ranked choice voting. I wish we had proportional representation. I wish we didn't have a winner-take-all system. I wish we had a parliamentary system. If I was emperor, I would abolish the fucking Senate. I would abolish the Senate, okay? So that's what I wish we had. Now, we don't have that, which is why we're stuck, you know, trying to take over the Democratic Party as opposed to creating a new party from the ground up and all that stuff. And I wish that wasn't the case, guys. I really do. But we're stuck in our system. But it's awesome that when you see the inner workings of other systems, and I think that the transparency of Question Time is absolutely glorious. The closest we get to this is, I don't know, a reporter giving a president or a senator a hard time, which they don't really give them that hard of a time. Or best we get is just the presidential debates. That's as close as we get to something like Question Time like this, but I'd love to see our own version of this. I think it would be great. Imagine Bush or Trump in Question Time. Like, I have my issues with Obama, but he's smart enough where I think he'd navigate him in a reasonable way. It would be awesome to see. Bush, I think, honestly, would have been the worst. W. Bush, he would have been the worst. Because Trump, even though he's a dumbass, he's aggressive, and sometimes the confidence people mistake for intelligence. You know what I mean? Like when it was him versus Hillary, and he would, wrong. People were like, Donald's killing her. So it would be interesting to see Bush. I think he'd do the worst. Obama, I think, would do okay. Clinton would have been a smooth-talking motherfucker while he's bullshitting us. And Trump would be full of shit, but he'd say it so confidently that a lot of people would believe it. I just wish we had our own version of this. I think it would be awesome.